You spent your whole life trying to be the good one, the obedient one, the one who did everything right, the one who didn't rock the boat, didn't make waves, didn't ask too many questions. You learned to be the person others expected you to be. You adapted, you conformed, you played the role, and in doing so, you buried yourself. You sacrificed parts of your truth to fit into the mold that was handed to you. You convinced yourself that if you could be good enough, if you could meet everyone's expectations, you would finally be loved, finally be accepted, finally be enough. But it never came, did it? No matter how hard you tried, no matter how perfectly you performed, something was always missing. You felt it in the quiet moments, in the spaces between your achievements, when the applause faded and the smiles turned into silence. You thought it was just you, that maybe you weren't trying hard enough, that maybe you were still falling short. But the truth is, it wasn't you who was missing. It was your real self, buried under the weight of everyone else's demands. You didn't need to be the good one. You never did. What you needed, what you've always needed, was to be the real one, the authentic one, the one who stopped playing a part and started living their own truth, without fear, without apology, without the need to please. You spent so many years trying to gain love and approval through what others wanted you to be, through meeting their expectations, that you forgot to ask yourself one simple question: who do I want to be? When you're constantly trying to be the good one, you lose sight of your own identity. You start to think that your worth is measured by the image you project, by the role you play. You become the mask you wear, and somewhere along the way you forget that you were never meant to be a mask. You were meant to be a person complex, flawed, real, and free. Not a reflection of what others need you to be, but an expression of who you truly are. The pain you feel, the confusion you live in, the sense that you're constantly walking on eggshells, it all comes from one thing: you're living someone else's life. You've become a reflection of their expectations, their needs, their desires, instead of standing in your own light, grounded in your own truth. And that truth, the one you've buried beneath layers of goodness, is the only thing that will set you free. The truth is, you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. And that's a far more powerful thing than any image of goodness you could ever project. Realness doesn't conform to the world's expectations. Realness doesn't fit into boxes, doesn't follow rules set by someone else. Realness is messy, raw, and unpredictable. But it is the only thing that will bring you the peace and fulfillment you've been desperately searching for. So ask yourself now, who are you really? Who is the person beneath all the roles you've played, the expectations you've met, the identities you've worn like costumes? It's terrifying, isn't it? To strip away the layers, to stand bare, exposed, vulnerable, without the mask of perfection that has protected you for so long. Because in a world that rewards conformity, being real feels like an act of rebellion. It feels like risking everything: your relationships, your security, your image. But here's the secret: you can't find true peace until you start living your truth. The more you try to live up to an idealized version of yourself, the more exhausted you become. You can't keep up the act forever. And the longer you keep pretending, the more disconnected you become from the person you're meant to be. You see, the world doesn't need another good one. The world doesn't need more perfect people pretending to have it all together. The world needs real ones, people who are unafraid to be themselves, who aren't trying to live up to anyone's expectations but their own, people who are willing to embrace their flaws, their contradictions, their imperfections, and still say, I am enough, just as I am. You never needed to be the good one. You needed to be the real one, the one who wasn't afraid to show up as they are, to live in the fullness of who they were meant to be. Because when you're real, you give others permission to be real too. And that's when true connection happens, not from perfection, but from authenticity. When you start living your truth, something amazing happens. You stop seeking validation from others. You stop looking for approval in places where it doesn't belong. You stop measuring your worth against someone else's expectations, and you start realizing that you are whole, just as you are. The paradox is this: when you stop trying to be the good one, when you stop performing for approval, you will become more loved, more admired, and more respected than you could ever imagine, because people are drawn to authenticity. They are drawn to the courage it takes to be vulnerable, to be honest, to show up without masks. When you're real, you stop pretending. You stop hiding your weaknesses, your fears, your mistakes. You embrace them as part of your journey. You become someone who doesn't shy away from the messiness of life, but someone who dances with it, who accepts it, who grows through it. In a world that often praises conformity, being real is the ultimate rebellion. It's the refusal to shrink into a mold that doesn't fit, the decision to carve your own path, not the path that others have laid for you, but the one that feels true to your heart. So here's what you need to understand. You were never meant to be perfect. You were never meant to be the good one. You were meant to be the one who shows up as themselves, raw, authentic, flawed, but undeniably powerful. You are meant to be the one who chooses truth over performance, who chooses authenticity over approval, who chooses their own path over the one that was handed to them. And the moment you step into that truth, when you stop hiding, stop pretending, and start embracing who you really are, you will find freedom. You will find the peace you've been searching for all along. Because peace comes from authenticity. Peace comes from living your truth. No more pretending. No more performing. It's time to be real. And in that realness, you will find everything you've been seeking, not because you're good enough, but because you are enough. When you stop chasing the approval of others, something magical happens. You stop shrinking yourself. The constant fear of judgment, the tight grip of people's expectations, they begin to loosen. You begin to breathe. You begin to exist not as a reflection of what others want you to be, but as the full, untamed force of who you really are. It's not just a shift in behavior. It's a deep seismic shift in identity. Because once you realize that being good is a prison and that the true power lies in being real, you start to see the world in a completely different light. You begin to look at your relationships, your career, your passions, and you ask yourself, am I doing this for me? Or am I doing this to meet someone else's standards? It's a question that will shake you to your core. The reason why you're afraid to ask it is because it requires honesty, deep, raw honesty. And that honesty will demand you confront the truth of how much of your life has been spent chasing a version of yourself that doesn't exist. But this is where you begin to reclaim your true power. Being real means you no longer accept the lie that you have to earn love, respect, or success through perfect behavior. It's not about getting everything right. It's about being willing to get things wrong, fail, stumble, and keep moving forward anyway. In a world that rewards perfection and conformity, being authentic is revolutionary. This revolution happens from the inside out. It's a gradual shedding of the skin of who you thought you had to be to fit in, to be loved, to be successful. It's a stripping away of the performances, the masks, the constant juggling act of trying to be what you think others want you to be. And as you peel back those layers, you will begin to see the strength in your vulnerability. You will begin to see that the parts of yourself you once tried to hide, your insecurities, your doubts, your flaws, are not weaknesses, but rather the very things that make you human and the very things that allow you to connect with others on a profound level. The truth is, you don't need to be perfect to be worthy of love. You don't need to fit into a mold to be worthy of respect. You don't need to have it all together to be a person of value. The moment you begin to embrace who you really are, you stop walking on eggshells, stop calculating every step to avoid rejection, stop pretending to be someone you're not. You become comfortable with your imperfections, and in that comfort, you discover a peace that only comes from accepting yourself. And that peace is contagious. When you are real, you give permission to others to be real. You stop playing the game of comparison and competition because you know that no one else's journey is your journey. You stop measuring your worth against others' achievements because you realize that true success isn't about doing better than someone else. True success is about doing what feels right for you, no matter how messy or imperfect it may seem. Being the real one means you stop the cycle of validation seeking. You no longer need to measure your worth by how others see you. You no longer need their applause to feel good enough. You become your own applause. You become the one who recognizes your own worth, your own value, your own contributions. This doesn't mean you become selfish. Quite the opposite. When you are real, when you stop playing the role of the good one, you become more available to others in a way that matters. You stop trying to save people because you know you can't fix their lives. But you can show up as yourself fully, unapologetically, imperfectly. And that authenticity gives others permission to do the same. That is the beauty of being real. You stop trying to make everyone comfortable, and instead, you focus on making yourself comfortable. When you do that, your relationships change. They become more genuine, more raw, and more meaningful. The fear of judgment dissipates because you realize that the only judgment that matters is the one you pass on yourself. The only validation that matters is the one you give yourself. You are your own source of peace, your own source of power, and once you realize that, your life shifts in ways you never imagined possible. Suddenly, the things that once seemed so important, the praise, the approval, the recognition, lose their hold on you, because you are enough just as you are. And that is the key to everything you've been searching for, not perfection, not approval, not the approval of the world or the people in it. The key to your freedom is accepting yourself, all of yourself, and giving yourself permission to be as human as you are. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real, real in all your contradictions, all your vulnerabilities, all your potential. And in that realness, you will find that there is nothing more powerful than someone who stands fully in their truth. And the moment you step into your truth, the world will feel different. You will stop walking in fear of rejection, stop pretending, stop hiding parts of yourself from the world. You will become whole, and that wholeness will attract everything you've been searching for. The love, the success, the peace, not because you're trying to meet someone else's standards, but because you've finally realized your worth. It's time to stop playing the role. It's time to be you. You've always been enough. It's time to start living like you know it. What happens when you stop pretending, when you stop measuring yourself by other people's standards and let go of the idea that you must always be perfect, always be the one who carries the load, always be the one who never falters? What happens when you just decide to show up authentically without the need to fit into the mold you were given? It's terrifying, isn't it? The vulnerability of it, the rawness, to stand in your truth without the crutch of external validation, without the masks that kept you safe, kept you liked, kept you in the game. But that's exactly where the power lies. Here's the thing about life. It's not a game of perfection. It's not a game of meeting expectations or keeping the peace at the cost of your own happiness. The real power lies in how you show up in the world when you decide to be fully yourself, without the fear of judgment, without the worry that you'll be rejected or abandoned. When you stop trying to be the good one, when you shed the illusion that you have to please everyone, you'll begin to see life with new eyes. You'll see the world not as a stage for you to perform on, but as a canvas for you to paint your own masterpiece. You'll stop asking for permission to exist authentically. Instead, you'll create a life where you live from your deepest truth. This is the moment when you take back control. No one has the right to decide who you should be. The truth is that only you get to decide that. You are the creator of your own narrative. You can be who you were always meant to be, no longer restrained by the invisible chains of someone else's expectations. And when you do that, when you embrace yourself as you are raw, flawed, and beautifully human, everything around you changes. You stop hiding your insecurities. You stop covering up your flaws. You start seeing them as the building blocks of who you really are, instead of the things that disqualify you. You stop running from your own complexity. You embrace it. In a world that tells you to be one thing, to fit into one role, to carry a certain image, being real is revolutionary. To be real means to break free from the system of labels and roles. It means you are not confined to the box that others have put you in. You are free to explore, to evolve, to be ever-changing in your truest form. Now, imagine a life where you're no longer performing. Imagine a world where you don't have to second-guess every move, where you don't measure every word for approval, where your worth is not dictated by how many people like you or how perfectly you fit into their vision of success. Imagine a life where you simply show up as yourself. The thing is, when you show up as yourself, people will see the real you, and that will be the most magnetic, powerful version of yourself. Because authenticity is magnetic. When you stop pretending, when you stop trying to be who others want you to be, you start attracting the people and opportunities that are truly aligned with your essence. And what happens when you attract the right people? When you attract people who see you for who you really are, you stop living for the wrong kind of validation. You stop seeking approval from people who don't understand your truth, and you start attracting those who can see you clearly, who can embrace your full self, flaws and all. This is what the world needs right now. People who are willing to be real. People who aren't afraid to stand in their truth, to speak from their heart, to act from a place of integrity with themselves. People who are willing to show their scars, their vulnerabilities, their doubts, and still say, this is me, I am enough, I don't need to be perfect. Perfection is an illusion. Authenticity is where the power lies. The sooner you realize that, the sooner you begin to see the world as a place of infinite possibility. You will find strength in your truth. You will find courage in your vulnerability. And you will create a life that is entirely yours. So let go of the need to be the good one. Let go of the image you've tried so desperately to uphold. Let go of the role you've been playing for far too long. Step into your realness. Step into your truth. Step into the person you've always been underneath the layers of fear, shame, and expectation. The world doesn't need another version of good. The world needs you, the real, unfiltered, unapologetic version of you. The one who doesn't need approval, doesn't need validation, and doesn't need to perform for love. When you decide to be real, you stop waiting for permission. You stop hiding. You stop apologizing. And for the first time in your life, you stand tall in the fullness of who you truly are. And in that moment, when you claim your authenticity, the world becomes yours to create. The possibilities open up. The chains of goodness fall away, and you are free to step into the future you were always meant to create. Now, create it. What happens next when you finally let go of the need to be the good one? When you step away from the image of perfection, when you stop acting, stop pretending, stop holding back parts of yourself because they don't fit into the narrow mold of someone else's approval, what happens is you start living. For the first time in your life, you step into the arena of realness. You stop measuring every step you take by the opinions of others, by their desires for your future, by the expectations they've placed on you. You realize that you have never been truly free until now. The weight of those invisible chains, those expectations, those roles, those unspoken agreements suddenly falls away, and you feel lighter. But the freedom, the liberation you feel isn't just about shedding the weight. It's about who you become once you free yourself. Who are you when you no longer care about playing the part? You are a force. You are a human being who has fully claimed the right to exist in all of your complexity, to live without apology. You become powerful, not because you are flawless, but because you have embraced your humanity. You no longer chase perfection. Instead, you chase truth. And truth is magnetic. As you begin this journey of living real, you begin to notice something profound. The people around you start to change. The relationships that once felt strained, the conversations that were shallow, the connections that felt like a transaction, they begin to shift. Why? Because the real you is now meeting the real them. And in that meeting of truth, real connection happens. You no longer need to perform. The moments of silence, of vulnerability, the moments where you show your true self, they no longer feel like risks, they feel like freedom. True freedom lies in the ability to show up, raw, unpolished, and still find peace in your own presence. But this is where the challenge intensifies. You see, the moment you decide to be real, you are no longer playing by the same rules. The rules of seeking external validation, of fitting into a role, of pretending to be something you're not, those rules are out the window. And suddenly you realize that there's a new set of rules you must write for yourself. These new rules are based on authenticity. They require you to step out of your comfort zone, to reject the easy, safe path of conformity. They challenge you to meet your deepest fears. The fear of being rejected, of being misunderstood, of not being liked. And in that challenge, you discover the most powerful truth of all, that rejection, misunderstanding, and disapproval from others no longer have any real power over you. When you are real, you stop seeking approval because you have already approved of yourself. And the moment you approve of yourself, you stop living for others. You stop giving them the power to decide your worth. And in doing so, you gain access to an untapped well of strength, of self-worth, and of courage. That is the power of being real. You are no longer tethered to their judgment, their opinion, their expectations. You become a force of nature, not because you fit in, but because you stand apart from the need to be seen a certain way. You stand in your truth. Now, you begin to create from a place of authenticity. The projects you take on, the relationships you nurture, the decisions you make, they are no longer driven by fear of rejection, fear of making mistakes, or fear of not being enough. They are driven by your soul's truth, and that is an incredibly potent thing. When you make decisions from a place of authenticity, you are no longer afraid of what others might think. You step into the unknown with trust, knowing that every step forward is your own. There is no fear of judgment because your sense of self is no longer dependent on what others believe. It is rooted in something much deeper, your own truth. But make no mistake, this journey is not for the faint of heart. The world will try to pull you back into the mold. It will challenge you. It will try to keep you small, to keep you playing the role of the good one. You will face moments of doubt, moments when you question whether it's worth it to keep going. You'll wonder if it's easier to go back to the comfort of wearing the mask and fitting in, to seek validation once again. But the moment you choose to step into your own light, there's no going back. You begin to realize that the world has always been waiting for the real you. Not the version of you that fits into their boxes, not the version of you that complies with their rules, but the version of you that dares to be exactly who they are without apology. The world can't help but take notice, not because you're doing anything extraordinary, but because you are doing something deeply powerful. You are living as yourself. And in that living, you give others permission to do the same. You show them what's possible when you stop conforming, when you let go of the fear of being seen for who you truly are, when you choose authenticity over perfection. You set an example. Every time you make the choice to stand in your truth, you inspire someone else to do the same. Every time you shed the mask and let yourself be fully seen, you create a ripple effect. It's a revolution of self-acceptance, of courage, of living from the inside out. And this is where your power lies, not in your perfection, not in your compliance, not in being what others expect you to be. Your power lies in being real, in being bold enough to break free from the rules that others have tried to impose upon you. You take your life into your own hands, and in doing so, you create a future that's not dictated by anyone else's expectations. The moment you become real, you give yourself permission to be free. You step into a life that is yours, not dictated by the world, but carved by your own hands. You begin to live with intention, with purpose, and with joy. Because when you are real, everything else falls into place. And when you do that, you give others the courage to do the same. You become the change. You break the chains, not just for yourself, but for everyone who needs to see that it's possible to be free, to be yourself, to be real. This is the world we need. This is the future that is waiting for you. It's not the future where you fit in, where you comply, where you play a part. It's the future where you stand in your truth, without apology, without fear, and without hesitation. This is the moment when you stop trying to be the good one and start being the real one. And in that moment, everything changes. The real revolution begins when you let go of the idea that you need to be perfect, that you need to be something you're not, just to fit in, just to be loved. True power is not found in perfection, but in realness. The moment you choose to stop pretending, stop performing, stop living for others' approval, you break free from the prison of expectations. It's terrifying, isn't it? The idea of standing in your truth, fully exposed, with no mask, no filter, no persona to hide behind. But that is where your freedom lies. That is where your true potential lies, in the unfiltered, unapologetic expression of who you are. The messiness, the contradictions, the flaws, the beauty, the rawness, all of it, is the essence of your realness. And that is what makes you powerful. When you begin to live as the real version of yourself, when you stop chasing validation and start embracing authenticity, the world will begin to shift. People will notice. Not because you're trying to impress them, not because you're playing the role of good, but because you are being real. You are showing up in the most powerful way possible as yourself. You will stop seeking approval. You will stop measuring your worth against the standards of others. And you will stop being afraid to make mistakes. Because mistakes are not failures. They are part of the process of being human. They are part of the journey of self-discovery, and they will guide you toward the person you were always meant to be. In embracing your realness, you begin to live a life of freedom, freedom from the opinions of others, freedom from the suffocating need to please, freedom from the constraints of trying to be something you were never meant to be. The only thing that limits you is the belief that you must meet someone else's standards. When you let go of that belief, the doors of your life swing wide open. You find yourself moving through the world with purpose, with clarity, with a deep sense of peace. You are no longer living in reaction to the world around you, but creating your own reality from the inside out. The world needs you, the real you, not the version of yourself that you've constructed to fit in, to gain approval, to avoid rejection. The world needs you in all your complexity, your imperfections, your raw authenticity. Because when you live your truth, you give others the permission to do the same. So stop pretending. Stop trying to be what you think the world wants you to be. Step into the life you were always meant to live. And in that moment, when you stop being the good one and start being the real one, the world will open up to you in ways you never imagined. You will step into your own power, and in that power, you will become unstoppable. Now, be real, be bold, be unapologetic, be yourself. The world is waiting for you to show up fully, authentically, and powerfully. And when you do, everything will change.